Welcome back. Now, popular podcaster Ranveer Allahabadia, who's known for his motivational content, is now at the center of a massive controversy. Just months after receiving the National Creators Award from none less than the Prime Minister himself, Allahabadia is facing severe criticism over a viral clip from Samay Raina's YouTube show called India's Got Latent. The footage shows him making lewd and incestuous remarks. Shockingly, instead of condemning the incident, the panel, including host Samay Raina, laughed along, raising serious concerns about freedom of speech and the lack of content regulation. The backlash has been swift. Right-wing groups, including BJP and the Shiv Sena, have slammed Allahabadia for his remarks. Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, as you heard earlier, condemned the development, stating that while everyone has freedom of speech, that freedom ends when it encroaches upon the rights of others. The Hindu IT cell has also gone a step further, filing a formal complaint against Allahabadia, host Samay Raina, and the show for airing uncensored obscenity to the public. Not just this, but a police complaint has also been registered against Allahabadia and the show over the matter. This incident has once again raised the crucial question of how far is too far in the name of comedy, and is it time for stricter social media moderation? Listen.
There is something called social responsibility, and therefore, if not policing, at least moral policing by the public, by the spectators, by the viewers is also required. These people should know that they should not cross all these limits of decency and be abusive in their content.
एनसीडब्ल्यू में अब नहीं हूँ, एनसीडब्ल्यू एक्शन लेगा। वो जो सोशल मीडिया पे एक डिस्गस्टिंग सा वीडियो आया है, वो सरकार और पुलिस को उस पे एक्शन लेना है, पुलिस ले भी रही है। एनसीडब्ल्यू को मैंने फॉरवर्ड किया है। उस तरह के वीडियो समाज के लिए ठीक नहीं है, आने वाली जनरेशन के लिए ठीक नहीं है। मुझे लगता है इस पे पुलिस को जल्दी एक्शन लेना है।
इन्होंने कुछ ऐसी टिप्पणी की है विच टोटली हर्ट्स द सोशल फैब्रिक ऑफ द कंट्री। हमारे देश में माँ बाप को भगवान माना जाता है, और ऐसी आपत्तिजनक टिप्पणी करना इज़ नॉट राइट, भले ही वो माँ बाप किसी और के हों। Our society is being driven by the customs and traditions, and such creators and such influencers are the black spot in the society. हमारा सरकार से एक ही रिक्वेस्ट है that such content should be monitored and strictly scrutinized, और ऐसे कंटेंट क्रिएटर्स को सम्मान किया जाए, ना कि उन्हें अवार्ड से सम्मानित किया जाए। We hope that the strict action will be taken.
Let me go across to my guest at this point. Joining me is Advocate Rizwan Siddiquee, who is a noted advocate. Advocate Siddiquee, what do you make of this entire debate? And I'm also being joined by Professor Bejon Misra. Professor Misra, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Ritangshu.
Yes, Professor Bejon Misra, thank you for speaking to us on Mirror Now. You've been a prominent citizen voice for a long time at this point. What do you make of this generation of content creators? I'm sure you might have heard some of those contents that are going on social media at this point. Nobody wants to, and especially at Mirror Now, we don't want to be the flag bearers of censorship here, but evidently these comments were so crass, so lewd, and so vulgar that even the most liberal of all sensitivities would be outraged.
No, I fully agree. We don't want to breathe over the shoulders of creativity. While we encourage that people should be creative, they should be given that fundamental freedom to, be able to communicate with their viewers. But we definitely do not tolerate any kind of a vulgarity or any kind of a misuse of the freedom. So there is an urgent need for regulators to always sort of be alert and be able to bring down such videos which are being shown in the public domain and take serious action so that none of these, broadcasters are left free, and some stringent actions to be taken in such a manner that nobody dares to do it again. I mean, the whole point is, which I'm making, in terms of Ritangshu, is that the regulatory bodies are not alert in our country, which is the most unfortunate part. We have laws in place, we have mechanisms in place, we have paid full-time people who are supposed to be taking care of such issues, but we don't find them working. We don't find them accountable. And that is where we feel very disappointed that what is this mechanism going on? I mean, why do you wait for people to complain? Why don't you yourself take actions suo moto and take such actions that it deterrents? It doesn't allow people to take such, kind of vulgarity in public domain. And just to get their, eyeballs more attracted and be able to commercialize these kind of activities in a manner which is enriching them, I think it's a sheer, kind of a criminal activity. In my view, even though the constitution of our country allows us freedom of speech, it doesn't mean that it allows you to misuse and use it in a manner which actually degrades or undermines our value system and our country's image. Overall, we have to make sure that we don't get into those kind of places where the country's image is at stake. And I don't understand when I hear people in the TV channels, especially the the elected representatives and others, that we have complained. What do you mean by complaint? You have to take action against those regulators. You are an elected representative. You have all the rights of the citizens to take action against those culprits who are encouraging such things to continue in our country. So you have to take action, and we want that heads should roll where the regulator is not taking such actions in a prompt manner. And that is where we always, kind of come into such debates, which I think we can avoid. But anyway, I definitely congratulate you all, Mirror Now, and other channels who are alert to bring such matters in public domain and attract the attention of the regulator to ensure that, our citizens are protected from such vulgarity and such kind of...
Bejon Mishra. Okay, Bejon Mishra is still with us. Advocate Rizwan is also with us. Advocate Siddiquee, the point is that by coming up with a blanket statement that there should be more regulation, there should be more censorship, we are entering tricky matters, Advocate Rizwan. If you can have him on air also, it would be very important. The last thing we want to do is to encourage a license and give the government or any so-called custodians of morality a license to use it for political censorship or to use it to censor people who have been critical of policies of the government or of the authorities here. But in this case, is there a merit in saying that, that age-old argument that if you don't like what you're seeing or if you don't like what you're hearing, just don't listen to it, just don't watch it. Evidently, there were people in the audience who perhaps found this humor suitable for them. So why stop them from enjoying it? Do you buy that argument, Advocate Siddiquee?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, with regards to anything which is done in public, even if it is a ticketed show, see, even when you're buying tickets and entering into a show, does not mean that I am aware of exactly what is going to happen in that show. So during the show, if I find something which is offensive or which is not decent, I can actually file a complaint against the organizers of the show, as well as the host, as well as the people who are there on stage. See, the question here is that, in the name of, freedom of speech does not mean that you can get away with anything in the name of a show or in the name of, being some kind of, you can say, in a light humor or making fun of anybody or anything which could be derogatory or insinuating something or putting somebody's reputation at stake. We cannot do that. So there are laws, and there have always been laws which are governing these kind of situations, even tricky situations where you have had a ticketed event. So all that I'm trying to put to you is that does the law permit, does the law allow these kind of obscene things? The answer is no. And it has never allowed. It has never permitted. It's not that whether it is going to be permitted or not permitted. No, it's never allowed. The acts are as old as 1860, which were changed now in the year 2023. But these answers were even found in the earlier acts. Anything which is indecent and done in public, you cannot get away with it by saying that it was a ticketed show, because the argument would then be that the person who's entering by buying a ticket was not aware that what is going to be happening on that particular show. It is not that in the tickets you had written that there's going to be nudity, there's going to be this. You can't put disclaimers against normal general public law and say that this is what was expected. It's not that you can get away with an argument, another argument that if you don't like it, don't come and watch it. It does not get away with it. Everybody will be pulled up, and people have been pulled up earlier. The unfortunate part is that a lot of people don't want to get into the legal, debates and arguments and start running around in courts. So people don't do it. That's a different question. But whether it can be done, the answer is yes, it can be done. Done meaning people can be pulled up and they'll be prosecuted also under the law.
And from the looks of it, they are going to be pulled up because the massive backlash that we are seeing on social media is also reflecting from the political class as well across all party lines. Now, Kasturi Shankar is an actor who's joining us as well. Kasturi, as an artist, you have been at the receiving end of censorship and vigilantism in the form of political vendetta. But where do you stand on this? I remember this reminds me of a controversy where AIB at that point with stand-up comedian Tanmay Bhatt, who is of course someone who's very close to Samay Raina in this case, AIB had come out with the first roast which India had seen, and that was something which was seen as so radical, so that ruffled so many feathers that there were complaints filed up, that video had to be taken off YouTube, and the cascading effects are still being felt at this point. The only criticism that was being leveled against that AIB roast video was that it had profanity. And the counter criticism that was is that this in every roast show we see across the world, profanity is often fine at this point. We all use profanity in our day-to-day lives. Let's not be holier than thou and pretend that it doesn't exist. But this show, did it not cross a line in terms of the sexual nature of the comments that were being levied, not just, by Ranveer Allahabadia against a panelist and with everyone else laughing and cheering along?
Okay, it's very ironical that I actually connect to you from Allahabad. I'm at Prayagraj and I was in the beginning not going to comment, but then I saw the issue and I'm like, I won't get any punya by taking dips in the Ganges if we don't speak out against such perversion, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
This is not freedom of expression. This is freedom of perversion. And that has to be nipped in the bud. You talked about All India Bakchod. That I was one of those people who actually supported Tanmay Bhatt's freedom of expression at that point, and I said, hey, it's all, boys will be boys, banter, it's just harmless banter. What did Arjun Kapoor say? What did Ranveer Singh say? Not much. Even for me, this is unacceptable, and I don't understand where in the world a guy with Allahbadia as a surname, मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रही कि what was he trying to do? I understand that, what would you rather do kind of, I think that segment is meant to shock and it is meant to have difficult choices to make. But I'm saying if you had to talk about, good Lord, if you had to talk about some kind of sexual positions involving parents, don't take an innocent contestant and pull his family into it. Why don't you give a choice? Say, what would you rather do? Would you watch my parents or would you watch me? Or would you tell me, why doesn't he put himself in the question? Nahi karta na. So he won't do it to himself. He won't do it to his parents. But it's okay to talk about other people. It is absolute perversion and malice and degeneration of the first order. This kind of behavior cannot be normalized.
And not to mention, Kasturi Shankar,
just sit down and watch this.
That's not the only comment. That's not the only comment which is really jarring, because at one point Ranveer Allahabadia also dares the contestant to perform a sexual act on him if he pays her 2 crores, if he pays the contestant 2 crores in cash. Now, that, according to me, is a genuine case of a sexual assault threat being happened. You mentioned a point, Kasturi Shankar, of being provocative. Is that the problem, that the stand-up comedy scene in the country, because it has to constantly deal with the aspect of political and moral censorship, goes as a result further and further underground and decides to be further and further risk and further provocative just to make that point and just to have that shock value and come out as edgy and cool?
No, I believe that bad comedians resort to riskness, to resort to profanity, because they are not creative enough. Because we have several wonderful
Fair enough.
comics in this country who make us laugh 19 to a dozen times a minute, and they are fantastically talented. India is a land where, you just pull out your Insta and you see so much talent coming at you from very, very unexpected quarters. And then there are these people who hide under the guise of comics. This is an apology for not being creative. You're trying to be provocative. You're trying to put. I mean, did you even see how the contestants reacted? Were they enjoying it? This is not one of those MTV shows where you give them a truth or dare question. This was clearly sexual assault, verbal assault, and you are just making them stand there and throwing a pecuniary incentive for them to be belittled in front of
Indeed.
a national audience. It's
Indeed.
tragic.
I'm being joined by my first caller, KV Gupta is joining us from Bengaluru. KV Gupta, please go ahead and have your say.
Sure, Ritangshu, and all the viewers who are watching this channel. Freedom of expression, there is a limit to freedom of expression. The answer, rather than taking it legally, which will never get solved, etc., the parents of these two people should be brought onto the show, and these people should ask the same question to their parents. And then the whole world will see how they will react to their sons. And these people should ask the same question to their sisters. And if they're married, they should ask them to their wives. And if they have daughters, they should ask them. As simple as that.
Because it's so funny, right?
When millions are watching on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, then these people will learn the best lesson of their life. Otherwise, they are there only for shock value. They're there only to scandalize people. They're only there to create controversy. So that is my opinion. The best
And
answer
get their parents
that is my...
I agree with you, KV Gupta. I agree with you partially in the point as all of this is done to shock, and anyone who has followed Samay Raina will know that he has a tendency of coming up with provocative comments, and he has a underground fan following for his so-called dark humor and all dank humor and all that nonsense. What I don't personally agree is that I don't understand why we need to respect. Yes, Mr. Gupta, I get your point. What I don't agree and I don't believe is that why do we necessarily have to reach a point where we can only respect women when it's our own mothers, our own sisters, our own wives, etc., which comes into play. There should be a clear law, and that's where I go back to Advocate Siddiquee. My question initially to you, Advocate Siddiquee, was that where do we draw the line between censorship and between open vulgarity? Perhaps the beginning would be to start off with the sexual nature. If it is a comment, and these two comments, forget the incestual parent one, perhaps it was in horribly poor taste, but the other one in which he's openly daring a contestant to perform a sexual act with him for the price of 2 crores, this definitely comes under sexual harassment, and perhaps that should be the opening line. Samay Raina went infamous a few days ago when he had shamelessly attacked the character of another stand-up comic, Kusha Kapila, a few months ago on the garb of being, again, roast humor at this point. Should that be a starting point? I'm sure we can all agree on that comments which are sexual in nature and affect the dignity of a woman, as per the law, should definitely invite penal prosecution.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with this. See, Chapter 3 of the Constitution of India, which deals about these kind of rights, the freedom of speech, freedom of, other freedoms which are given under the Constitution, even that particular constitution does not allow these kind of things to happen, meaning in the name of humor, in the name of entertainment, in the name of, making people laugh, you cannot resort to these kind of techniques where you are attacking anybody's character, whether sexually or even otherwise. Now, with regards to the current situation where we can see that it is to do with the sexual nature of the attack, it is obvious that this was done, and whether there was intent or no intent, that is secondary. The fact is that it was done openly, it was aired, it is in public domain. So in a situation like this, we already have existing laws which will ensure that the FIR is registered immediately. And as a matter of fact, if the police officers do not register the FIR, there are sections to that effect also, that the police officers would be punished. Like in the earlier act, it was section 166C of the Criminal Amendment Act 2013, which has now been changed to BNS and BNSS. So even the new acts talk about it. So given the current situation where, these acts have already taken place, and
so you're saying,
whether
Advocate
they
Siddiquee, that
attract...
there are enough provisions within the law, within the law for them to be taken into account. And I'm guessing that will happen here. But the larger issue, I'll come back to Bejon Mishra for the last word. Bejon Mishra, the fact that has gotten a lot of people rattled is the platform that these individuals have. Samay Raina disguised himself as an underground stand-up comedian, but Ranveer Allahabadia is mainstream. He's had... okay, go ahead, Advocate Siddiquee.
Yeah. So, what I wanted to conclude here is that in the name of freedom of speech, you cannot use any medium, whether internet or whether any kind of platform for that matter, in the name of entertainment and do these kind of acts. As a matter of fact, even the Information Technology Act talks about this. So whether it is a ticketed event and then later on put on the internet through whatever medium, it will still attract. Now, with regards to the censorship part, unfortunately, like in films, we have a censor board. Now, these kind of events, we do not have a censor board. We do not have a censor board which can actually censor something which is happening live. It is not something which is documented or maybe produced and then sent for censorship. So this is something which is happening at the given instantly. It's happening. So we cannot have a current censor board which can censor things which are going live. But nonetheless, it is the responsibility of the person who's doing it that they do not take law in their own hands and in the name of entertainment do any act which is going to be criminal in nature. So it is the responsibility of every citizen of India to avoid doing all of these things. Yeah.
Fair enough, Advocate Siddiquee. The point I was also going to make in conclusion, unfortunately we are out of time here, but the point is that Ranveer Allahabadia has had the who's who of the political and the influencers and the celebrities from all walks on his life on his podcast at this point here. So it's very important also to understand the kind of platform, the power one holds in social media, not to use it unfairly. Kasturi was making a point that we have great stand-up comedians who don't have to use profanity. I'm sure my parents will agree on that as well. I think someone who we all remember very fondly is Jaspal Bhatti Saab. And I don't think he ever had to use a single profanity to try and make his point at this point, to make his point clear. So unfortunately, this is a horrible trend. Hopefully lessons will be learned. Thank you all for joining me. We will be discussing this much in detail throughout the day at this point. Unfortunately, Professor Bejon Mishra, I'm so sorry I have to go. I'm so sorry, Bejon Mishra, I have to move on at this point. Karnataka